This is Jonathan Yates with Culture of Sports. We're filming from the General Assembly in Annapolis, Maryland with Delegate Kathy Afzali. Delegate, thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Thanks for having me.
So I guess the big question is, how does someone who was born and grew up in California end up representing Western Maryland in the Maryland General Assembly?
Gosh, you're talking about 60 years of life history, so I don't know where to begin. I started off in the Bay Area. My father, the son of Italian immigrants, my mother, the great-granddaughter of pioneers that settled the West.
Wow.
So my family ended up in San Francisco. I grew up in South City, and then at 18 I moved to LA. I was a dancer, and I worked in LA in commercials and different productions. And
Anything we'd recognize? Any names or anything?
Well, I ended up on Broadway, so you might recognize a few
Certainly.
of those things. But then I was there. I worked off and on. I founded a children's theater and ended up meeting my husband, and through a few turns of events and ended up in Frederick County, Maryland, and started having children. And that's when I started paying attention to politics and all of that, and here I am.
So,
I don't know how that happened.
On your website, it said you did the soccer/dance mom things.
Yeah.
What did that entail?
So my oldest daughter was a soccer player. She kind of took after my husband. He was a semi-pro soccer player. And then my youngest daughter took after me. She was a dancer, and she's actually currently a dancer at University of Maryland. She's on the dance team.
Yeah.
You know, the girls at the football and basketball games. So
That's about all there was to cheer about this year at the Terp football
well,
basketball
you know,
game.
it was a little frustrating this year, I must say, but the dancing was really good. So anyway, so that's kind of how I ended up in Western Maryland, and my husband and I opened a business, and got more involved with the schools and so forth. And at the time, I wasn't happy with my delegate, and I said to my husband, well, I guess I won't be voting for delegate. And my husband said, well, you can vote if you run. Oh. And I was like, you have lost your mind. And that was it. I ran for delegate, and I don't know how I won, but I did.
So what was it like? Pressing the flesh, wearing out the shoe leather, going door to door?
Well, it was pretty stressful. I had, young children, and I don't know that we knew what we were getting into when we jumped in, but all in all, it's been really an amazing ride. It's been 8 years, my 8th year in the legislative body of the House of Delegates, and it's been really amazing. It's been amazing to be part of things that are good. I'm not always happy with everything that comes out of Annapolis, certainly, but there's ways that I believe I've made a difference, and that really that makes me happy.
Yeah, as I was telling you, I used to work for Representative Roscoe Bartlett when he was in Congress, and I fell in love with Western Maryland. I always thought it was one of the unknown pearls of Maryland. What are the rest of the people missing about that area of the state?
So I think that you mean, what are they missing about Roscoe Bartlett, or
No, the outdoor activities out there. The wineries are certainly wonderful out there. The mountains, Deep Creek Lake.
There's just so much to do, so much outdoor activity. And then Frederick County has its own, and actually I'm running for Frederick County Executive. I don't know if you knew that. But Frederick County has really just kind of a wide range of activities. You can be a little more urban and artsy in Frederick City and have great, first-class restaurants. And then you can go to the rural parts of the county where there's farming and, cows and ice cream. And we are the #1 milk producer still in the state, although it's becoming increasingly hard to produce milk and make money. Our farmers have had a bad few years, but it's been just amazing, just getting to know just all the different people in the county. Some people have been there for generations, some people are new to the county, and it's just a really great place to live.
Now, I've read several articles bragging about the foodie scene in Frederick.
Yeah.
Is it all that?
You know, it's kind of funny about Frederick City. It's really come a long way. I can remember when my husband and I, our anniversaries on New Year's Day. So there was never any restaurants open. There was one restaurant open on our anniversary. Now we have a lot of different choices. So
Sort of like the Chinese
after a few
restaurant on A
years-
Christmas Story.
Right. There would only be one choice. But yeah, we've really we've grown. We've expanded. We've got. There on Market Street and all over downtown, just really some first-rate restaurants that I can't wait to have lunch there every day when I'm the county executive. So
Yeah, save you on a commute time, that's for sure.
Exactly.
What is it about the community sports in Frederick that are so special?
Well, I think that we have, first of all, just this year in Frederick County, we've had probably, I want to say, 8 to 10 state championship teams from all aspects of sports: track and field, football. We've had basketball. We've had baseball. We've had the women's volleyball team from Oakdale. We're just here earlier this week. So it's we really do pride ourselves in excellence, and there's been some very fine athletes to come out of Frederick County. And my own daughter was on the Middletown team in 2013 when they won the state championship, so that was super exciting.
Was the community behind them in that?
Oh my gosh. Golly, I'll never forget that game, but I felt like my heart was going to pop out of my chest. But yeah, I mean, the stadium was full. People came down from Middletown and all over Frederick County to cheer on the teams. And that's really true across the board with all of the sports teams. They really have so much support. And we're very community oriented in Frederick County. And I think people really are behind the schools. And, especially in these rural communities, you have the high schools as kind of the center of the community, and it's where a lot of this social life is. It's where the FFA meets. It's where you have your drama people in the auditorium. You have your sports teams practicing. You have your banquets for different groups and clubs and so forth. So high schools in Frederick County are really very much supported in the community. So yeah. So
have you seen that level of support rise since you moved there?
I think that you notice it once your children get to be at an age where you're in that level in the communities. So yeah, my daughters, you start noticing when you get in school. I noticed in Middletown just the degree of volunteerism from the parents. You had to fight if you wanted to be the room mom on the bus, to go on the field trip. Man, you had to really jockey for position. So yeah, I can remember actually both times fourth grade, when the fourth grade of both of my daughters came to Annapolis for their fourth grade trip. Boy, every mom wanted to come, and we had to draw straws, and I drew the straw each time. Maybe that was an omen of my future.
Yes.
I don't know, But yeah, I drew the straw. So.
I was reading the Evening Capital early today, which is the paper of record for Anne Arundel County, and they were interviewing an author, and she wrote about soccer in terms of being a soccer mom in this area as a sport. Does that surprise you?
No, I think it's very impactful, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, certainly those sports teams bring out the best and the worst in parents, and I'm not going to kid you. There's some parents who I've seen banned from the field, and rightfully so. Sometimes a parent will yell out something and you're like, oh my goodness, why would somebody yell that? But by and large, I think that there becomes a camaraderie of the parents. And, you just want your kids to be happy. You want them to enjoy that time and enjoy their high school years, because high school years, can be up and down for a lot of kids. And sports are not for every child, obviously. There's, not every child goes on a sports track. My oldest daughter did, my second daughter didn't. And but I think that sports offers so much for a lot of young people. So yeah.
What have you seen the impact of Title IX be, both as an elected official, a former athlete, and as a mother of 2 athletes?
So here's what I'll share with you. I grew up in the 70s. I'm really aging myself now. I won't tell you what year I graduated from high school, but when I was in high school, I think it was my senior year, was the first year that Title IX came into effect. So the young women in the school were just starting to play sports. We didn't really have what girls have now. You know, I speak to young women groups all over the state, and, you know, these young women take for granted what they have, but they don't realize, you know, when I grew up in my little town, South San Francisco, when I was a kid, it was understood that women had 4 choices. You were either going to be a teacher, you were going to be a nurse, you were going to be a stay-at-home mom, or you were going to be a secretary. That was really your options.
And this is Northern California, not Western Maryland.
This was Northern California in the 60s, you know. So I don't think people realize how times have changed. The fact that we didn't even have sports for girls. I can remember as a child, my dad coached, we called it Pee Wee baseball. And I wanted to play baseball so badly. And my dad said, "Oh, you're a girl. You know, you can't play baseball." And I wanted to, and I was really good. But that wasn't an option. There was no sports option for me. So my mom at the time, she thought that I was turning into what we called in those days a tomboy.
Sure.
You know, instead of being called a sporty girl, which what we call now.
Now you'd be called a scholarship athlete.
Well, maybe that's it,
Yes.
right. But in those days, you were a tomboy. So as a tomboy, I was rushed to dancing lessons, and apparently I was pretty good at it, because about 15 years later, I was dancing on Broadway.
Sure.
So I guess Mom was okay. She did okay for me, but
Well, I'm sure your daughters have never found anything you've ever done wrong, so.
oh, well, my goodness gracious, I'm sure there's a laundry list of all of my mistakes. And I do tell other parents, I wish you'd let me give you my list of mistakes so you can try not to repeat them, because I've had plenty. But they turned out well in spite of me, not because of me. So.
Now, the one who plays soccer, have you pointed out to her how much she's benefited from Title IX that you did not?
Well, you know, that's a good point. Maybe I should. You know, a game like soccer or any of these sports, they've done studies of the brain and how the young brain forms. And, you know, when you're on the soccer field or on the lacrosse field, your brain and your body are making decisions. You're making thousands of decisions every minute. You know, where do I put my weight? What arm do I use? You know, where's my eye going? How's my head? You don't even know you're making these decisions. And part of that is brain development,
yes.
how the brain develops and expands. And so sports and the arts and all of these activities are imperative, I think, for young people, brain development, for healthy growth, just healthy sense of well-being. And hopefully we want to get kids focused on activities that are healthy and fun. And, you know, we've had some sad tragedies, as you know, with
Sure.
young people who, you know, for whatever reasons that, you know, none of us could explain in one easy sentence, have chosen the wrong path of violence. And I can't help but believe if that young person had been, you know, helped and guided, and you know, maybe they weren't good at sports, or maybe they weren't good at dance, or, you know, maybe they weren't good at the arts, but there was something that they were good at. There was something that they could have found a way to be productive and to contribute. And unfortunately, you know, they choose a bad path, and hopefully sports and other activities help avoid those kinds of tragic choices.
Now, has it surprised you how competitive your daughters and the other girls are at sports now?
Not really, because
Really?
if you've known women through time, women are very competitive. So I think what it's done is, instead of making women competitive with each other over men, let's harness that energy and make it a positive competitiveness, over a goal, a set goal of, I'm going to better myself. I'm going to run the best game I've ever run, or I'm going to score a goal. That's my goal for this month, or whatever it is that you're setting for yourself. I think young women are proving that they're a force to be reckoned with, and they're tough competitors. So yeah, it's good.
Now, for the first time in history, there are more women in the first-year medical school class than men. So you see Title IX having its impact in the classroom, too. Do you see the females being just as competitive in the classrooms now?
Well, I think in some ways women have become young women are more competitive. Unfortunately, I think that we want to make sure that we bring young men and we nurture these young men as well. And I don't have all those social answers, obviously. But yeah, I think that these opportunities that have given themselves to young women, which, my generation had to suffer through, and my mother's generation didn't see it all. I mean, my mother was the first woman in her generation in our neighborhood in South San Francisco to go to work. And she got her real estate license and went to get a job at a real estate firm, and nobody would hire her. This was, 1968, 1969. Nobody would hire her, and because she was a woman. And finally, one broker got smart and thought, well, if the woman usually buys the house,
Yes,
even though the man's writing the check, at that point in time, the man was writing the check, but the woman was buying the house. Wouldn't it be smart to hire a woman to talk to that woman? And so there was a broker that got smart, and my mom ended up being very successful. So,
well, now there was an article in the Capitol last week that more than 50 females are running for office in Anne Arundel County, which is a record. Do you see that same impact up here in the General Assembly?
I don't know about the General Assembly. It's, I think it goes in waves at different points. I think it is hard for women to run for office. We haven't broken through all those barriers. And when I say hard to run, I think it can be brutal.
Harder than for a male to run for office?
I think sometimes. I mean, when I think of what I went through when I first ran, the expectation of what I needed to be and what my male counterparts in the race needed to be were entirely different. I mean, and the criticism had more to do with, she's stupid, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Nevertheless, I was running a business, I was running a household.
You were a college graduate.
I graduated cum laude with a business degree, but none of that seemed to matter. It was simply focused on how I looked and things like that. So women did, and I think it's changing. I do think it's changing, but to say politics is tough whether you're a man or a woman. That's just a given. But I think that I think some women candidates can take extra scrutiny over things that their male counterparts don't.
So have that made the victories even sweeter, both on the campaign and working in the General Assembly?
You can't compare your victory being sweeter to someone else, because I'm sure that other person thinks their victory was sweeter. So, but victory was pretty sweet. Both elections, really. So
one of the premises of this show is that Maryland has the best high school sports in the country. I don't think you can go anywhere in the world like the 32 miles on the BW Parkway and expect to even come out unscathed. What do you think it is that makes Maryland sports so much better than any other state?
Well, I think we have, socioeconomically, we have some very highly educated, highly motivated citizens here in Maryland. We have a strong military presence, which kind of lends itself to being in top form. Highly competitive. I don't have an answer for that, but I'm awfully glad, because my children grew up here. Both my daughters at University of Maryland now, and
actually that was a very good answer as to that.
Yeah, I just. I've enjoyed the benefits of it for whatever reason. And again, I've had, if I tell you in my 8 years here coming to Annapolis, I've probably had 30 state championship teams just from my county alone. So some of them coming multiple times.
Something's working, clearly.
And some of these coaches are just so incredibly dedicated and just really passionate about the young people that they coach. And some of them are not just sports coaches. Some of them are life coaches too. And I've seen those relationships with coaches build over the years. Because it's not just about the winning of the game. Sports is about, integrity and playing the game and playing the game the right way. Of course we want to win, but we want to win the right way. And, there's so many lessons to be learned. And I just feel thrilled that I've been able to be a part of it for the last, I want to say really more than 15 years now. My oldest daughter is 22, and even though she decided not to play, she played her first year in college. She played in a D3 school. She transferred to Maryland, and she decided she didn't want to play, but she still plays club. So she still loves the sport and the exercise and the fun and the camaraderie. So,
what life lessons did you learn from being a dancer that made you successful in business and now successful in politics?
I think probably just that hard work ethic. I think that that came from my family and my upbringing. My parents were just hard workers, and we knew from an early age that that you work hard and you love your country. Those are the two things taught in our home: love of country and hard work. And I think my dad worked for the same company for 40 years, and he only missed one day of work. And he told me he had the flu so bad he just couldn't get out of bed one time. But they worked hard.
Any lessons from the coaches? Obviously, as a dancer, the importance of footwork, that's for sure. But through the injuries that dancers always have.
Well, I was very fortunate that I didn't suffer injuries when I danced. But I'll tell you, being in show business really prepared me for political life. That's for sure. Man, you had to be tough. You had to be tough.
Well, you were successful in show business, successful in dance, successful in sports. Does anything compare to how cutthroat politics is?
Well, that's a really good question. You always think that you transition into something else and people will have better behavior. Human behavior is just human behavior. Yes. So are there some nasty things that happen in politics?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of nasty things. But certainly my life in theater and show business, it definitely helped me prepare to sometimes expect human nature can sometimes fall short of where it should be.
Well, let's get to the best of human nature to end up here. Jeff Bezos, the head of Amazon, is looking for the second headquarters. Montgomery County, which as we all know is pretty much Frederick County now too, has made it into the top 20. What would you tell him this is a great thing to sell him to nail down that second headquarters in your area?
Well, I am the wrong person to talk to, and boy, if anyone in Frederick County hears that we are an extension of Montgomery County, I'm here to tell you that we are no part of Montgomery County. We are Frederick County, and Montgomery County is there, and we are here, and we are two separate entities, and we don't want to look or become Montgomery County, so I want to make that very clear. But I will say that Maryland has a lot to offer in terms of the employment base. But there's a lot of controversy about that whole thing, so we'll kind of have to see how that plays out. But Frederick County is we're just kind of in a wait and see right now.
So what would you say is the appeal to Western Maryland standing by itself, Frederick County out through Garrett?
In terms of just who we are?
Businesses?
Right. Well, our economy, we have better cost of living than you'd have down near the Beltway. We have some beautiful homes and beautiful communities. We have great schools.
And how would you sell the sports aspect?
Well, you've already done that. You've done a great job about how sports definitely are really kind of those activities that bring communities together and help students and their families to really kind of focus on those common goals and especially of supporting the kids and helping young athletes to be healthy and to be well-rounded. So
it's springtime, soccer and baseball and lacrosse. It's getting underway.
Well, I'll be at some of those games, that's for sure.
Well, we look forward to being there too, Delegate.
So
Thank
good
you
to
for your
see
time.
you. Thank you so much for having me.
It was our pleasure.
Thank you.